Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be taking a little look at some projects that we had planned, ones that I mentioned in the previous episode regarding the Nether Hub. Now I had a Nether Hub originally designed quite some time ago that I was really into, and as time went on I kind of wanted to sway away from that idea, mostly because it didn't really align with what I was ultimately ending up looking to do with. Now after a little bit of consideration I had some ideas, nothing solid that I really wanted to go with, but one that's kind of flowed over time and kind of developed and become a little bit more clearer of it as time has gone on. In order to head forward with this project, it required me to clear a little bit of bedrock on the roof, which I think I mentioned in the previous episode, I don't totally remember, and I wanted to kind of get some clearing done so we could make some space. It makes building a little bit easier around here. Now, in all honesty, this is once again using the infamous bedrock breaking mod, but again, as I mentioned, as a trade-off for using the old bedrock breaking mod and saving me having to make a bedrock breaker. The main reason, by the way, I don't want to make a bedrock breaker, in case anyone's really concerned about it, it's mainly the staircasing thing. I'd end up using this mod to end up clearing the staircasing anyway, and in such a small area over here, it makes more sense if I just do the whole thing by hand, and instead of trying to kind of clear this area and then clear the staircasing, didn't really make too much sense. But again, as a trade-off, I yeet the pistons, I don't collect the pistons, and therefore this has taken me a hell of a lot of pistons to clear. Now at this point I'm pretty much clearing out like I'm about 2 layers in at this point. As you see in this time lapse here, things got progressively more aggressive because when you're getting through the layers, ironically the thing is, it actually becomes cheaper as time goes on because the layers of bedrock become a little bit thinner. You end up using a lot less pistons overall. Unluckily, it still ended up being somewhere like between 15 to 20 shulker boxes of pistons that I ended up wasting. But hey, no big deal. At the end of the day, having renewable resources is one of those reasons why you make farms in order to, yeet things as and when of needed. Now, once I had cleaned the bedrock roof, I was kind of thinking about what kind of design I wanted to do. So at this point, I wasn't 100% sure. If you have a little look on the side of the walls here, I've kind of gone for a little random pattern that kind of fills the space a little bit. I didn't want to leave it all as black concrete, and actually this kind of molded into the design that you'll see here. Unfortunately, some of this replay mod actually ended up getting yeeted a little bit, so you don't have the full view of everything that you do that I wanted you to see in terms of the build. But maybe that leaves a little bit of guesswork to you and a little bit more of a surprise for when we actually go and have a look at the actual live build. So the idea for me was to build something really cool on the bedrock roof, and my decision came to build something like a volcano. In this case, an actual volcano. And this was a really weird last minute choice that ended up being made. And I can't remember what it was that made me make that choice at the end of it. But we have a volcano here. Now this isn't probably a great visual of it, so let's do a little free cam action here, and you can get a slightly better look at the volcano itself. Now this is a pretty cool design. I actually really enjoyed kind of designing it. It took a little while to kind of really get an idea of what I was looking for, and the overall build ended up working out somewhat nice. It's missing some things that I really wanted to add to it, but this will probably be some kind of like overtime development. I think more so because I wanted to get like a rough idea at first, and I kind of got a pretty good idea of it. I think it turned out looking pretty good, but still not, amazing. I'm not really like overly excited about it. Now at first I was thinking, what I'm gonna do is I'm probably just gonna have the volcano, and we'll have a space inside where we can use to utilize for whatever. And as time went on, I decided that I would kind of get things to work a little bit differently. So as of right now, just so you can see, we've got some lava to give the illusion at the top. The entry into the volcano is down here. And as you can see on the inside, and I apologize if you're watching on if YouTube's rendering has made this pretty terrible. In fact, let's go ahead and help things out a little bit here with some night vision that I keep luckily inside. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and keep a couple of these because I might end up needing them for the rest of this tour. Now, you can see on the inside it's got like this really corroded pattern, and one of the things I didn't get to mention on the time lapse was kind of the choice of the block palette here. You can see as you start at the bottom here, there's a lot more of a heavier use of the basalt and some cobblestone. As you go further up there, the cobblestone almost completely disappears, and the basalt goes from mainly use of basalt to more use of blackstone and coal block at the top as well. When you get to the top here, you can see that it mostly turns into blackstone. The cobblestone and the basalt was mainly removed from at this point. Obviously you'll start to see the mix up of magma and stuff here as well. That was kind of the transition up to the top to kind of get the effect of like where the source of lava at the top is. And yeah, the campfires were kind of a last minute decision, and ultimately I think it ended up looking all really good. However, like I said, this isn't a final product here, and I'm by no means finished, because the inside took a long time to figure out what I wanted to do and kind of the direction where I was going to go with it, based on more than just the design, also taking into account for things like piston bolt networks and stuff like that. So I've got something in mind, so keep a little eye out for that, maybe on the next episode. I'm going to actually stop calling these episodes, mainly because I don't really release them in a sufficient amount of time to call them an episode. They're probably at this point more like updates, wild updates, I think, and you'll see why more of that in a little while, just because there was a couple more things done. But anyway, once I've finalized the interior of this, which I kind of have, I'm mainly focusing on project storage, which is actually where the portal behind me would eventually lead once I'm done with project storage. But if you're watching at this time, I'm probably a few episodes away from finishing it up, so it should hopefully not be that long. Obviously, as time goes on, we obviously have a lot more projects that we like to take on board, and we're not always just doing one thing at a time here. But sometimes I get bored, I want to do some things a little bit differently, so I want to start making some upgrades to other parts of the world too that I think I'm going to need. So one of the downfalls of using all that coal over there was that fact that I kind of I'm running short on, not ran low on or I'm out of, but running short on coal. So I thought it was time to maybe start thinking about upgrading the Wither skeleton farm. So I don't know if I told this story in any of the previous episodes, but this is my previous Wither skeleton farm, or at least one side of it. Now this runs on a portal-based system from the Wither skeleton farm down below, and the idea was that at some point I decided to prune my chunks, and unfortunately on the overworld side I mistakenly yeeted the overworld side, and therefore I now technically don't have a Wither skeleton farm. The easiest thing to do obviously in this case was to just go ahead and relink portals and set up the slowdown mechanism for transferring the Wither skeletons back into the Nether. Now that would have been the smart thing to do, but I thought, you know what, we're going to need an upgrade eventually. Let's see what we can do. This is what I decided to do instead, which is clear out the Nether, or the roof, at least for now. I set up a tunnel board to try and yeet most of the roof, which actually worked out pretty well. Didn't take too long. I'll be honest with you, there's a design that I'll probably leave linked in the description of Discord, which is really easy to build, this one here. Which I've left up here for a reason, by the way. I'm going to use it for ancient debris hunting every now and then. Whenever I need ancient debris, this will come in handy to just blow up on the roof. So much less lava to clear. Not as fruitful. In fact, in this whole 200, was it 200? Yeah, 270-ish block roof clearing, I got about 20 pieces of ancient debris, which isn't a lot. However, not bad, considering, you know, it doesn't require that much effort. It took like 2 or 3 hours to do the whole thing, and you know, it's not a terrible return rate. I've built one of something similar, like I built one of Volcano's actually, which is considerably smaller, way lower down to the floor, and it was just basically me spending hours and hours clearing lava out, and it wasn't fun or efficient at all. But the problem with this thing was building it, and I really messed up a few times. And what I might do is, like a lot of public service, is leave the schematic in my Discord with some of the things that need to be placed in. There's some immovable objects that you want to place when you're actually building it, because it's got some budded pistons at the top here, which I will show you, these ones here. And if you activate one of them, well, it's pretty much GG. I ended up rebuilding this thing before I even set it off once, about 5 or 6 times. It was a pretty painful process, and funnily enough, I thought that the using it process would be the hardest part or the most annoying part, and it was definitely not. It was most definitely not. But hey, we've made some progress on this too, which is great. So in terms of project, you know, new Wither skeleton farm, we're looking pretty good. Now, I've currently got this as a single intersection set up here. I think there's more here. In fact, I think that's an intersection right there. I forget. Oh, actually, put that back on. I forget what the setup on this actually is. I'm pretty sure there's another intersection around here somewhere. Might even be that one. I forget. I've got a bounding box thing on here that I haven't set up. Haven't had a look at it. Maybe there's a few more around here. If not, I'm okay with just having a single with a skeleton fortress thing here. AFKing for a few days usually gives me enough resources to keep me going for a long time anyway, so I'm not too bothered about that. If there's some more around here, even better. I have a whole new setup. I've got a pretty cool idea for with a skeleton farm that I want to build, and it's actually a design that I've seen someone else build recently, which is interesting, so I don't know how I feel about that, but anyway, it's going to be pretty cool, and hopefully it'll be nice. It will be two-dimensional again, I believe, unless I end up building a fortress farm instead, because I've got a double blaze spawner around on that side over there. I may or may not end up removing that and just making a blaze and with a skeleton only farm, which I have a little bit of an idea with. It probably won't end up being very efficient, which is why I was not too excited about it, but even if it's relatively efficient, I'm okay with that too, because it still means blaze and obviously with the skeletons, which is pretty cool. So that's all there really was to say about the Wither skeleton farm. Let's go ahead and head back and see the one of the other projects I was working on. As part of the upgrade of infrastructure that's currently going on in my survival world, you know, I had this really weird situation a little while ago where I was kind of building things temporarily, and I really felt weird about building things temporarily because you always want to build like a bigger or better version of stuff. And honestly, that's not the best thing to do. Generally speaking, when you start off a new world, it is in your general interest to build something sustainable for a little while. And if you do plan on keeping the world up for a long time, you do want to build on that eventually. As opposed to just building, you know, super basic and then going straight over to the OP or whatever you would consider as OP. That was one of the issues I was having, but I kind of slithered around most of that for the most part, and to be honest, actually I did a pretty good job of getting around it. But it's kind of time at this point now to get on with the bigger thing. So one of the examples with the skeleton farm, one of the other examples is the storage system. We're moving on from, you know, the mushroom, you know, faux mushroom island. And the other one was building on another thing that I generally don't have that much of, and that's honey. Now, honey is one of those weird things that people really don't either like it or they don't like it, and they don't like to use a lot of it. I'm not neither here or there about it. If I find good use for it, I would like it. But as part of obviously gathering multiple resources, we're going to need a lot of that too. So we go on to site of our new honey farm. Now, this is something that I worked a little bit on in creative, so what I'll do is I'll give you a quick show off of it running at the moment. It's currently being chunk loaded, which is one of the ideas. And if you're thinking you've already seen this one before, well, you haven't. Because this isn't the one that I done a more recent video on. I think there was one that I built for Ambition Craft a little while ago. And this is not the one that you remember from Ambition Craft. This is a slightly different one, or a significantly different one, should I say. It runs on a concept that I had already seen before. And I wanted to make something a little bit more modular. So this is the initial look at it. You can see that it's running really well. And it's been chunk loaded. The idea here being, obviously, if I turn on chunk borders and get rid of that, this is in all nicely tucked inside of a 3x3 chunk, which means it can all be chunk loaded and within entity processing chunks at least. So following that clip, we actually cut to about a week later on, and I've actually ended up finishing the bee farm project altogether. Now, it took a little while, and to be honest with you, this is one of the situations where I got a little bit dedicated to it, and I wanted to just spend the time to get it done. I know that, like I said, as I mentioned before, once you leave a project alone and you collect the resources that you want from it, it's hard to have the motivation to go back again and do all the deco for it. So I decided that I'm going to do all of this as I'm going along. So let's go have a little look at the design that I've worked with. Now, usually I wouldn't go ahead and pop time lapses of me doing the build for the farm itself, but I feel like this is going to be a better idea for me to just run through my design ideas with you, because it had a little bit more of a theme to it this time, and I thought it'd be interesting just to break it down for you. So let's head to the entrance of the bee farm first of all. As we head closer to it, you can already start to see the theme on top of the roof here. Now, I did go for the top of the roof situation because I have basically come to terms that I'm going to be using the roof for most things. Now, as you come to the top of the roof, the idea here was to kind of have like an infestation of the bee farm area. So this is kind of like a lush cave, but kind of a bee themed lush cave, if you will. So the idea here was to have like an infestation into the roof where it kind of breaks through. So you can see we've got the hole in the roof here. And I've kind of had like the same kind of theme of breaking through here. We've got some custom birch trees with some beehives on them. I let a couple of the bees loose around here just to give it some sort of life. It also gives them the opportunity to fill up the beehives themselves. So we've got the visual of the dripping honey from the beehives, which I always find to be like a really nice little touch when you have particles on. And yeah, we've got the custom birch trees. I've also got a downed dead birch tree here as well, which I just thought was nice. Gave it like another, I don't know, just kind of gave it like a good feel, like kind of like the Nether meets the you know, the whole lush cave or custom lush cave biome thing. Kind of gave it that half and half of being in the Nether and having the lush cave feeling. Thought that was a really nice little addition here, just to have one. You can see the glow lichen kind of represents like the taking over of, or like the rusting and taking over of the dead birch tree here. Other than that, we just had a couple of more beehives, a little bit of spread of like foliage and stuff. Just looks really nice. The beacon's going to go now anyway. It doesn't serve any more purpose from the situation. So as we come closer into the entrance of the farm here, you can just see the stone walls just to kind of transition us into the hole. I put a little bit of the rooted dirt roots, or what, I can't remember what they're actually called, but we've got a couple of those hanging from the side here. Some glow lichen just to cover up the shroom lights as well. Just like the idea of having a couple of shroom lights to light up the entrance a little bit. As we fly down, we'll start to have a little look at how things have worked out inside. Now, the idea of the situation was to have it like a entrance to a lush cave, but the inside of here is kind of like, it kind of follows like this artificial bee sanctuary, where it's almost like we're home growing honey over here, but we're not actually home growing honey. It's more of like an enclosed environment where we're simulating homegrown honey. And obviously we're harvesting it as a factory as we are underneath. So yeah, we got the entrance over here. So we got like again some more foliage. I've gone for like a nice little randomized patterns, or like, you know, somewhat randomized patterns of a mix of like rooted dirt. We got some coarse dirt. We got some podzol, and we've also got the grass block, and we got some of the moss block as well. You can see in some cases I've used carpet with some lighting underneath just to illuminate certain areas that I want to specifically stand out. So that kind of gives it a little bit more of an atmosphere. I'll get back to these little huts in a second. But again, we've got a bunch of custom trees here. None of these trees were designed by me, by the way. These were ones that I found online from a tree pack, and I thought they were really nice and they worked out really well. So I just kind of randomized a couple of these trees everywhere, kind of give it that feeling. I really liked these trees because they seemed a lot more bare than some others. That one's got a little bit more foliage on there, but I just generally I wanted to stick to ones that had a little bit less on there, because again, it being in the Nether, kind of wanted it to feel like it was a little bit more, you know, falling apart-ish than overworld trees, if you will. I've left a couple of openings on the floor here just to give me a nice little peek of the farm itself. You know, you put so much effort into actually building the farm, plus all the randomized flooring on the side like you have on the walls here. So I thought it'd be nice to actually have a view of it. It doesn't provide enough of a view of the farm to give me the option to debug using the redstone lamps that you see there. So it doesn't really serve too much of a purpose, but I thought it does actually kind of look nice, just having a little bit of a peek. So if we move on now to the function of the farm, there's a couple adjustments that I made to it. There's the panels at the top there, which I'll run through with you guys in a second. But let's have a little look at what we've got in these three caves here. So these little hill openings I've made for functionality, obviously, because for me, functionality is king way more than design. As you can tell, as cute as this place looks, it's not exactly the most amazing place you've ever seen, but looks really nice, really brings everything together. But the main idea is to have the functionality of what we're going to be using this for, which is to harvest honey, obviously. So if we come into the first cave in here, you can see a little bit of foliage just to make the place look like it's a little bit worn down. Luckily, these blocks are so much easier to get now, the mossy cobblestone, because you can just use the moss block to actually make them so much easier, makes it a lot more accessible, makes it a lot nicer. So over here we've got the bottle refill station. These are just boxes of bottles that can be distributed into the system. If I go into spectator for a second, you can see this whole line is completely full of bottles. All of these are full of bottles, and so is this double chest here. So we've got a good supply of them, all from the raid farm originally. This should keep us going for quite some time. If we head over to this section here, we've got a little crafting station. This is going to be a little bit more convenient for us to craft it into honey. I don't want to have to take it into further locations or process it somewhere else. So I wanted to keep it relatively close to the collection system. So we've got a little crafting station here where I've already been doing some crafting. You can see here we've already got a bunch of honey blocks from not too long of AFKing, mostly just from the time that I was around the area, so about a few days, and this isn't really even all of it, which I'll show you in a sec. It's a really simple crafter that I designed a little while ago, nothing crazy. Good enough to keep up with what I'm going to need it for. Honey's actually got a really weird crafting system, especially when you use Tweakeroo. you can, like, you know how you have most cases where you can hold to craft and it will just mass craft items. It doesn't necessarily work so well with honey because it sometimes just spits bottles out. So having a automatic crafter like I did in Ambition Craft wasn't feasible and didn't make sense. I don't mind crafting a little bit of honey every now and then, a little bit more manually. It was not a big deal. I've tried to hide the crafting system itself as much as I could, but I still need access to stuff like this so I can stack in the stack shulker boxes, and I still need access to the dispenser. I could probably hide the dispenser here a little bit more, but I need access to the chest underneath to get rid of the empty boxes and pick up my honey here when I need to. And obviously we've got the input system on the corner over here as well. So this is the final entrance here. Now, once we get into here, you can see things are a little bit more detailed in this section. The main reason for this, obviously, because we had a little bit more space for one, and I really liked the, I kind of just liked like the free flow of trying to like whack things together and see what I could come up with. And so you can see there's a bunch of stuff here that I've used, a lot of leaves, glow lichen, some moss block, mossy cobble, so on. Now this is obviously the main collection point, as you can see from all the double chests here. Now this is probably a little bit overkill for storage. I don't know, maybe it is, but it doesn't really matter because it's not like an issue in any way, shape or form. You can see here at the moment I've collected quite a bit of honey. This is in addition to the ones that I've already crafted that I showed you earlier. So we're only about up to here. We were originally, if I had not crafted it, we probably would have been up to here, but that's fine. I'm happy to just leave this running. It's all being chunk loaded anyway. I can just let it run for however long it needs to. So this is all the storage for the honey shulker boxes, and then over here we have the refill chest for empty shulkers. That pretty much covers like the functionality of, you know, harvesting honey, taking care of like maintenance and stuff like that, and crafting. So now I want to show you the little panel over here that kind of indicates things to us to make functionality a little bit easier, because again, for me the main idea was functionality. So you can see we've got a couple indicators. You can see we've got the manual on-off switch for powering on and off the farm. We've also got some signs here to indicate what these lights are for. So this will tell us if the empty shulker boxes are empty, if there's no more left in storage, and this will tell us if there's any glass bottles left in storage as well. So what I've done is I've added a couple safety mechanisms to the farm. So there's a couple ore gates on the system. Both of them are the ones that I've already mentioned to you, or two of them are the ones I mentioned to you. So as soon as this dispenser runs out of its last box, it will turn the whole farm off. As soon as this dispenser, where is it? Hold on, it should be around here somewhere. Oh, it's this dispenser here. Once this dispenser runs out of bottles of honey, it will also turn the farm off. Obviously, this will probably still be a completely full box, but it's okay. I'm okay with, you know, having one box as a buffer. It's not a big deal. And there's a final one, which is storage, which we can follow from the back of line here. So once the storage is entirely full and this hopper finally starts to store items, that will mean basically all the reserves are completely full, which means I will also trigger to turn the farm off. That way it's basically self-sustaining and I don't really need to get involved in it. As I've probably mentioned before, we've got this really long pulse extender to give enough time for the system to shut down safely. The main thing is that the minecarts need to return back to their stations. The pulse extender allows enough time for that to happen. So once any of those conditions are met, the chunk loader here will basically turn off. There'll be within enough time for everything to shut down safely, and if the bees aren't back in their cells by the end of the pulse extender, it doesn't really matter anyway because they don't really have any issues with that kind of system. And that pretty much covers the end of our little honey excursion here. This was a project that took a couple of weeks, and I really wanted to get a really solid honey farm that I thought would last me for the entirety of my single player series. And I think this is basically going to be it. I don't see myself wanting to expand beyond this. I don't see myself needing to expand beyond this. If I leave this running for a couple of weeks, I'll probably have enough honey to last me a lifetime. And if I ever need any more, I think this is always good to just leave chunk loaded. I do run my single player on a server, which gives me the opportunity to leave it running and let things be chunk loaded as I go along. So I find that it's a good functionality for what I'm needing it for. If I run it on a computer, I think it may have been in my interest to extend the amount of modules that I use to get more honey in a shorter space of time. But for me, time isn't really an issue in this scenario. I think that actually brings us to an end of this world update, if I should say. The next update I'll probably bring to you within the next month or so, hopefully. Hopefully I'll get a little bit more progress done. The next one I'm trying to aim to get the storage system kind of up and running. It's a little bit tough at the moment because I keep taking on random little projects like the bee farm project. and I've got a couple more that I've had in mind, but I really want to get to the end of Project Storage because it's going to be a lot to do. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's probably going to be a focus of the next world update. I also want to kind of get the design work finished for the entrance to our Nether hub, the one that you saw for the volcano. The interior of that I want to kind of get built to. I feel like I've kind of come to the end of what I want to like actually design for it. I feel like I've done enough in terms of like my creative work for it, so hopefully I can try and get that finished soon. Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. Any feedback and all that kind of stuff would be much appreciated, and I will see you in the next world update.